All right, so we're at Scout Camp here this week, and I found the idea online about making a cardboard oven, and so I thought that would really make things at camp a lot easier regarding cooking, because you can do so many more things with an oven than you can with a Dutch oven. Plus, we didn't know if we were going to get a restriction on burning anything but liquid fuels, which actually turned out happening. So this became really beneficial for us. But when you look at cardboard ovens, it seems like everybody's using those pretty small ones that are like those Apple boxes, which that's great, but that wasn't going to work for us for Scout Camp. So I decided to see if we could maybe take it to the next level. Also, most of the ones that I saw online, in fact, I think all of them use briquettes, and we were hoping to use propane or something along that manner to make it work. And so I'll show you kind of what we did and tell you that, hey, it actually works, and it works really well. So here's the oven right here. This is a wardrobe box, which is probably one of the larger boxes that you can get. The exact dimensions of this box is 47 by 24 by about 20 maybe. And all we did is put the whole thing together, and you'll notice that up here there's no aluminum foil. The outside doesn't have to be wrapped in aluminum foil, and in fact it becomes more of an eyesore because it bounces off the oven when you're trying to sit at camp, and it becomes a little bit annoying. So we put the box together totally first, taped it up on the outside, no tape on the inside, and then simply cut a door in it. And then what we've got going on here, we initially started without this little griddle, but on the way up to camp we saw a barbecue that was offered for free. So we scavenged this out, which this worked really well when we cooked our ribs and different items. But all this is like a chafing tray holder that we got from Costco. And then the Costco by us has these really large pans. And so we figured that was the great way. The other thing I was gonna do is maybe run some rebar, 3 pieces of rebar through the side of this, so it would pop out maybe 5 or 6 inches on each side. But this little chafing dish holder really made it work really well. So this one's 18 by 26, so this is a pretty darn big cookie sheet, which actually worked out really well for our needs. So, and what I did, we got this barbecue thermometer so that we could actually make sure that we knew where we were cooking at. And I think the placement of that, and all it's got is a little nut. You take it off and it just pops out about that far. And then you just push it in. So what I tried to do was I tried to get our thermostat, or our thermometer on our thermostat, right about the level I thought our food was going to be at. So by the time we have a cookie sheet in there, you know, where did I think about our food was going to sit? And that's kind of what I was looking for. Was I want to know what the range is up there, because obviously up here it might be a little bit hotter. I don't care what the temperature is right there. I want to know what it is right here. And then what we did, if you can see underneath, there's we propped it up with just cans. These are full cans, but you probably could do light ones. On the top, obviously, we put rocks to hold it down, and that's kept it from blowing away. But what we've got is a backpacking stove that seems to have worked really well, and I'm gonna have to take it apart a little bit for you to see. Now, this is the only kind of pain in the neck part of this oven, because in order to change this, you gotta sit right here. And I'll show you what this stick does here in just a second. And you just kind of have to unscrew it. So this is a backpacking stove. This would use the normal butane, I'll unscrew it so you can see. This would use the normal butane backpacking canister. So it would just fit on one of those little dome ones that you kind of fit like that. But what we did is we got this adapter, and I think this thing was $1.50, maybe $2 on eBay. You probably would pay more on Amazon if you had to wait, but we had plenty of time to order this. And what it does is it allows you to use this butane canister that locks in right here. Hook the bottom, push it straight, and then twist it, and it allows you to put that in, and then you hook your stove back up. And the way we did ours is we made the hole a little bit smaller than the width of the actual stove. But it's important that you leave some room because it needs to. Usually what we do is stick it off to the side of the hole. You need to leave some room because we need to get oxygen in there, otherwise your flame's just going to go out. You can't, it would be a bad idea obviously to stick this in here and try and light it because your canister is going to heat up and you'll probably have it explode. So don't do that. Make sure this is underneath. And then our brilliant Scoutmaster came up with a modification because the pain in the neck part became coming down here and adjusting your temperature constantly. And so all we did is we took a dowel and cut a notch in it. And then what we do is every time we change it, we just slide this on there. And then we adjust our temperature by simply rotating it this way or rotating it that way, which has worked really well. So initially, it'll just be kind of sitting there. Crank it a little bit to get it going. I'm not sure if you can see that flame or not, but you can crank it up pretty quick, and it only takes, in fact, we can show you how quickly it starts up. But the important thing is getting the inside totally covered with aluminum foil, and we learned that it's pretty difficult to do without some help. We were able to pull it off. It took, for this entire thing, it took just a little bit more than one of these 150-foot rolls of heavy-duty foil. So 150 square feet. So this one is 18 inches by 33.33 yards. It took just a little bit more than that. And so what we decided is one of the easier ways to do it is if we would have had some metal push pins, the thumbtacks, not the ones with plastic on them. But we think if we'd have been able to put the foil up in the corners and then push that in to kind of hold it, that or maybe even just a stapler, that it would have helped, and then we could have put one more layer over the top of that. But as it is, you had to kind of get it to crumple together, and it took a little bit of doing. It was a little bit frustrating, almost to the point where you're like, gosh, I'm not sure if this is going to work, but it eventually does work. And then the door, obviously, down here, you just keep your foil tucked in, and as long as there's no cardboard actually exposed, we have used this thing all week. We have done, what do you think, Jeremy, 20, 30 hours in it?
Yeah, at least.
We cooked ribs in this one day for 7 hours straight. We've cooked cobbler in it twice at 300 degrees. We baked potatoes. We slow baked them because we left it while we went off to go out on the canoes. And it went for 3 or 4 hours. We've pretty much everything we could has been cooked in here because it just made everything a lot easier. And so I'll go ahead and hook this up and then show you how quickly, or kind of the procedure in getting this thing all set up. So, oh, and then for the door, we just used a bungee. You could probably use a number of different things. My initial idea was to use magnets, but this bungee has actually worked really well. But I don't think it really makes a difference. And this just sits just a little bit below where the door is because it's going to vent out a little bit of heat up top here. So the trick with this is just getting it underneath here and getting it to line up. It's actually better if you undo your stove like that, because if this is spinning when you're trying to do it, it kind of rips some of this foil off. This is our last day. Oh, we've actually got some exposed aluminum foil, so we should put just a touch there. As you can see, I mean, all sorts of stuff has dripped in here. When we did the ribs and the chicken, it kind of oozed all over the place, but it's worked great. What else have we cooked in this thing that I haven't mentioned?
Did some cobbler. We did cornbread.
Oh yeah, cornbread.
Cornbread cobbler, biscuits this morning.
We even made corn
on the cob.
Just left out the husk and
pizzas. Made pizzas in here.
Oh yeah, pizzas. So the pizzas actually worked pretty well. What we did is we cooked the dough over on the camp chef, just on the griddle, kind of just to get it cooked on both sides a little bit. Rolled it out, and then we had the kids put their toppings on it, and then put it in here for 7 minutes to melt all the cheese. So you can see that there's plenty of room underneath here where air can get in. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's sitting over here, if it's over here, it really makes no difference. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that this is pointing the direction we want our stick to be able to go. And then getting the stick on there, it's just kind of, there's no graceful way of doing this at our camp. You gotta lay down. And just fit it over the top of that. And then you can see we're sitting at well below and then just open this thing up. This is how I always light it. I just sit down here. There's our tray. The one thing to note is that your hot spot is right underneath your flame. If you bring it up to temperature, the problem is anytime you bring it up to temperature, you open this door and you lose 50 degrees from having it open. Well, you lose 25 degrees when we got too hot. We would lose about 25 degrees if we would do that. So you leave it open for that long and you lose 25 degrees. So if you leave it open for 6-7 seconds, you've lost 100 degrees of heat.
How many butane canisters have we gone through?
We've been here all week and we have used this thing a lot. Almost every meal, and we've been cooking mostly for breakfast and for lunch in addition to dinner. And we've gone through, at Costco they sell that 12 can, it was 12 cans of that butane, and we have 3 left, I think, and we're on, today's Friday, we've got a couple meals left to do, and so.
We've been here since Monday.
Yeah, so our fuel cost using this, they were $1.25 a can, so I mean we're like, $12, something like that. So at most it'll be 15 by the time we leave, because that's what the whole case cost. So if you know where to look, you can get those pretty cheap. If you're seeing those for like $3, you're going to the wrong spot. Go to like a restaurant supply store and they'll be able to get some of those for you. But your hot spot's going to be right above wherever that is. So if that works to your advantage, great. Sometimes, like when we were cooking the chicken, I wanted it a little bit hotter down there. We did that, but you can bring it up to temperature and then turn it down, and then it cooks very evenly. We haven't had any hot spot problems aside when you're just blaring that flame. So we've cooked using the grill. Usually what I do is I just leave the grill in, and then if we're doing, so we did cookies one night. The cookies came out awesome. Yeah. They were perfect on the bottom, perfect on the top. I mean, they were as good if not better than we'd have done at home. So there's plenty of room in here. One of the things I also did is one day when we were doing a bunch of leftovers, is I was able to push the grill over there, the cookie sheet right there, and then we were able to utilize pretty much the whole space of the oven, just being careful. We backloaded the back end, and then we're dumb and took off the stuff on the front, and everything kind of leaned to the back, and that's one of the reasons we've got stuff on back. But it's it's pretty versatile. So we'll move this just so you can see getting it lit. So all we do is just turn it until you hear it hiss a little bit. There we go. So that lit. So we're going from, this was totally cool. We used this earlier to make biscuits, but you can see how fast the temperature is. So we're just going to turn it up high so that we can get this thing up to temperature. Now obviously when you've got food up here, it takes a little bit longer to get up to temperature. But I mean, getting it to 350 might take 3 or 4 minutes. But you can see how quickly it starts to rise. When we did our ribs, we tried to keep it at 225, 250. Cooked them for about 7 hours. 7 of those was in tin foil. Took them out for the last 2, and then the last 30 minutes, I think we turned it up to 350 with the barbecue sauce on, and that turned out really well.
Talk about temperature regulation.
So particularly with this, it's actually pretty easy to hit a specific target. So let's just say we want to keep it at 225. If we want to cook potatoes over 3 hours or something like that, because we're going to be off going somewhere. It takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes to kind of really get it locked in. But once you've got it locked in, you can sit it and leave it. It's not like constantly you have to come check on it. And that was one of the things I didn't like about the idea. Here we are at 250, we're almost at 300. And that was one of the things I didn't like about the briquette idea. I didn't want to be tied to sitting here to the stove all the time constantly. So let's just pretend we want to get this thing set at 350. So,
and to cook something for 7 hours with briquettes, they're not going to last that long anyways. You have to relight briquettes.
Yeah, we'd have to be doing it constantly. So let's just say I wanted to be at 350. We're almost there right now, so I'm starting to turn down. Right when you get into this black area, 400 is in the middle, so 350 is going to be right there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this thing down, and on our stove you can actually see through just a tiny bit. You don't want to stick your finger there because it's a little bit hot, but with these gloves on you can actually see, I don't know if you can see it through, there's a spot right there in our stove where you can see your flame. And if you've got that flame down, I can tell almost by hearing now. If we've got our flame about right there, that's a maintaining flame. Whatever temperature we've got it at, it pretty much will maintain right there. So we want it at 350, we're almost at 400, so I want to drop 25 degrees. Now obviously it takes it a second to register. We'll turn that down a little bit. And so 350 is down right there, so you start to see it's dropping a little bit. I want to drop it another 25. And we may have to do that one more time because we still have heat going into there. But you can get it, I mean, it really doesn't take much adjusting your flame to get it to a constant temperature. So that's probably one of the bigger questions. And every once in a while you can't get it to sit just right. And that's what this carabiner is here for. Like, you can flip this carabiner around and prop the door open just a little bit if you need to. Like, sometimes just that makes all the difference. So now we're at 375. As far as I'm concerned, a 25-degree difference is great when you're camping. I don't have a problem with that. So if my target was 350 and I'm at 375 and it's staying stable, I'm fine with that. It's, you know, that's not going to cause any problems. Same thing with, you know, 325. We'll just cook it a little bit longer. Our cookies, I think we cooked at a constant about 300 instead of 350. So they took a little bit longer, but they were awesome. All of the kids were just raving about them. They were really good. So you can see now we've slowly dropped down. We're just below 375. I could probably lower our temperature a little bit more, and we'll get down to 350. But once it's there, and you can kind of go do whatever it is you need to do. And so it makes it pretty easy. It's not, so obviously if you were using like one of those metal ovens, one of those, if you touch the cardboard or the metal up here, your hand would be like singed. It's warm. It's not hot. Now if you touch out here with the aluminum foil, it can get a little bit hot, but it's crazy. The outside of this isn't hot, it's warm, but the inside is 350 degrees. So I can't explain to you the physics of why this works, but I can tell you it works great. I wish I had seen a video. I looked all over trying to find something that if we could do it on a larger scale, you know, from one of those smaller boxes, and that's the only reason I'm sharing this video, to give you a little bit of insight. But it has worked great. I would certainly make it again. The benefit to this is we've got this small trailer, and we've got 12 Scouts plus 4 liters that were coming up, and we literally had that thing, every square foot of that thing packed, and we did not have room for like a smoker or something like that if we wanted to use a smoker. And so this was all folded up. We intentionally brought it when the box was all laid out and flat so that we could conserve all of that space. And when we leave here, we're just going to toss it in the dumpster. So if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them, and if I notice the email, I'll try and respond. I think we've gone through everything pretty thoroughly. My big question, I was 90% sure based on the videos I watched that this would work. I wasn't sure because of the size difference, but that little backpacking stove worked great. The other thing that I brought just in case that didn't was, not even sure, oh yeah, right here, is I figured we probably could have made something like this work. I think there's a lot of things you could do to make it work. Is we were going to cut a hole and have this down below so that so just the flame went up in. But I wanted to try the other one first so that if it got too hot, it wouldn't mess up anything like this. But I think there's a number of ways you can make it work. I would steer clear personally of briquettes if you can, just because regulating the temperature, and I think those briquettes only last 25-30 minutes, and if you want to be doing ribs, do you really want to be sitting stoking briquettes all day? I don't. The rocks on top we did just because it was really windy the first night, and this thing hasn't moved since. So anything we should add to that, Jeremy?
I think that covers it.
Okay. All right.
Good luck.